Hi, my name is Celine Flowers. I'm about to graduate Sheffield Hallam University with a degree in animation. I have chosen to specialise in 3D CGI with a specific interest in modelling, texturing, as well as character animation. In my free time, I work on independent projects as well as collaborations. Doing these mini projects allows me to develop my skills further, and working with others allows me to work in a team. The software that I most commonly use involves Maya, 3ds Max, ZBrush, Substance Painter, Marvelous Designer, and the Adobe suite, specifically Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere Pro, and Lightroom. I've always admired 3D animation, and I've chosen this area to specialise in as I believe it allows for my designs to truly come to life. Looking at my website, I have 2 projects on display which contain the workflow for my projects and the finished products. My visual effects project named Ducks Around Town shows the design stages I explored before animating my 3D models to look as though they are in a real world setting, and the final product including the VFX breakdown. My other project on display is the animation I have produced for my final year at university. It is an animated short called Don't Fear the Reaper. This section includes some character design for both my main characters and the storyboards. I shall discuss my project for my final animation, Don't Fear the Reaper. I chose to create a short following 2 Grim Reapers taking part in a mundane reaping test. I chose to do this as I wanted to create a comedy short which lessened the fear of death. My characters include an old, frightening Grim Reaper and a young, naive Reaper who is taking the test. I shall now move on and discuss the methods I used to create this animation. I started with character design, creating a few loose sketches as to what I wanted my characters to look like. Originally, I was going to use faceless cloaks as my characters, inspired by the Ghost of Christmas Future in both The Muppets Christmas Carol and Scrooged. However, I quickly decided against this and looked into creating skulls, as it would allow me to implement emotion into my animation. I needed different looks for each skull representing the difference in age. I knew that for my young Reaper I wanted him to have a normal, non-threatening skull, and so I based it on a human skull, but removed his bottom jaw to make him appear more cute. My old Grim Reaper, however, needed to look old and be intimidating, and for this I researched the origin of the Grim Reaper, and discovered that this concept originated in the 14th century when Europe was suffering from the Black Plague. This led me to implement the popular plague doctor's mask into a skull. When I started storyboarding for my animation, I looked at classic 1920 to 1940s horror films and their utilisation of close-ups to truly show the monster's appearance. I used these specifically on my big Grim Reaper, with the second shot of the animation being a close-up still of just his face. I also implemented a lot of high and low shots to really show the dynamic between the 2 characters, one being superior and one being inferior. The storyboards provided a rough timing for my animation, and I applied this into the animatic. However, in the later stages of actually animating, I discovered that quite a few of the camera angles and timings didn't work. Using 2D storyboards in a 3D animation is quite challenging, as some camera angles don't work, and in fact, having a camera that you can drag around in the 3D software is much more helpful. Whilst I was creating my animation, I discovered that I had a very strong passion for modelling. I had many props and objects within my scenes, as well as the characters, and found that I was doing more work than was really needed for the modelling aspect of this project. I modelled everything apart from my characters' skulls organically, without reference images, and had a lot of fun doing it. I found that I would go into great detail on a prop that would only be in the entire project for about 2 seconds. I used ZBrush for the first time while creating my animation, which I used on the skulls to give them the extra detail. I began by modelling the basic shape of each skull in Maya and then exporting them into ZBrush, where I added the extra details such as the cracks and the areas where the skull is indented. I then took each skull into Substance Painter. I didn't have to do much texturing of my small skull, as he was supposed to be new. Using Substance Painter for the big skull was hugely helpful, as I found a preset of stitches which I ran along the beak of the skull. This was much easier than if I were to do this on Photoshop, where adding in every stitch individually would be more time consuming. I then added in the cracks around his eyes and on his forehead, whilst also adding in a deeper colour for the textures within his skull. I also had to model a body for my skulls which would be underneath their cloaks. Originally, I was just going to place an egg-style shape underneath with skeleton arms attached, so that the egg shape would serve as the shape of the torso, and the rest of the cloak would drape down. However, because I was really enjoying modelling on this project, I decided to model a full skeleton minus the feet. The rigging of my characters took a lot of experimentation in order to get it right. Due to the nature of my characters being skeletons and having each individual bone as a separate joint, I learnt that the best way to skin these joints would be to flood each individual joint completely, so that they move separately of one another. This worked well, and it was surprisingly very easy to move and animate, and I ended up being especially proud of the hand movements in my characters, specifically in one shot where the big Grim Reaper is marking his board. When I moved on to lighting, I experimented with different kinds of lighting for each setting. My first scene was in a hospital, so I wanted to get a cold light that would often be found in these places, making them bright and blue and looking very clinical. I moved on to the 2 nighttime scenes next, and I was happy with this lighting. I used a large area light that was coloured purple as the base and included artificial lights from street lamps and buildings to create a spotlight effect and illuminate the important elements of the scene. My final scene involved a natural light, and the shadows were especially important in the scene, and so I focused a lot on finding the best light and right colours to create these shadows. Once everything was together, all that was left to do was render and put everything together. The rendering took a long time in my hospital scene due to the reflective surfaces within the scene. I knew that these surfaces would significantly increase the render time, but I was not willing to sacrifice on the quality of my render for time management. Doing a whole project by myself has taught me a lot about the production work that goes into an animation. It has also shown me where my strengths and weaknesses are, and with this knowledge I am going to go forward and try to improve in these areas. I believe that this project shows that I am able to produce work to professional standard, and with improvement I believe I am ready to join the industry and contribute to professional projects. You can find me at any of these sites to look at other works I have created, or contact me directly at celine_flowers@hotmail.com. Thank you for watching.